Fact or fiction? Is listening to secular music ruining your spiritual health? Stay tuned for today's video. Hi, I'm Camille of Camille Inspires. So happy that you have joined me today. Today I asked a question, and I hope you understand that the question really boils down to one thing. Should Christians listen to secular music? Before I begin, I want to really make 3 points followed by 3 questions to help you to answer this question basically on your own. I'm going to put in my points, and I hope you'll be able to ultimately glean from that where I am going with this particular video. So let me begin with point 1. Point 1 is this. We first need to consider God's original intention or function or purpose for music. In everything that God created, we learned in the book of Genesis, it was for our good, and it was good. So therefore, music is good in terms of God's intention and God's purpose for it. The challenge is that because of the fall, it could be used for bad purposes or not for good. Good, we can define that in terms of something beneficial, right? So God desires that if we listen to any kind of music, it has a benefit to it. Spiritual benefit, an emotional benefit, whatever is benefit that it may bring to us, that as long as it is in line with His desire for us, right? So let's think about for a moment Saul and David. David went at the issue that was going on with Saul to play some music, and he played some music for Mr. Saul, who was very much at that point dealing with a lot of just harassment of the soul, so to speak. And that music calmed him down. Music has a calming effect, and it doesn't have to be just spiritual music. I'm sure you could relate to maybe jazz or some type of other instrumental music having a calming effect on your soul. I know for me, sometimes I listen to reggae music, which has obviously great lyrics, and it's just a calming impact on my soul. Music has that power to immediately transform any environment. The question is it good? Is it beneficial? Whatever it is that we're listening to, is it a part of what God's original design for music is, which is to be able to provide something that is going to create some kind of benefit for our emotional, spiritual, or physical well-being? So with that, I want you to consider that first question, first point. Second point as well is this. There's so much debates about the style of music in which we should listen to as Christians. And that goes down to instruments. Should drums be used in the church? Should guitars be used in the church? Should rock music be played in the church? Hip hop and jazz and all these type of things. There's so many questions in regards to the style of worship music before God. I don't see this as an issue that we should be squabbling over, but I know that it is an issue that often is. In the Word of God, there is no distinction made in regards to the style of music in which we choose to worship God with. I think it's going to all come back down to point number 3 that I'm going to make in a moment. And I know that this is one that is hotly debated, so you may have your particular point of view on this one. I know for many years my great aunt who just recently passed away used to say, listen, it's all about the hymns. You know, these contemporary songs, I don't know what they're about. They're pretty much useless. The hymns, that's where it's at. So we have people in different camps. I think what's important is not to judge or berate or reprove anyone for where they particularly may stand. Every man must be convicted in their own mind, right? But at the end of the day, we really need to realize that the style of music or the instruments that are being used, there's nothing specifically in scripture that we can point to that says don't do this or don't use that. That is dishonoring to God. I think it's going to come back down to number 3, and also to what we're seeking to do or what is the intention of that music that we're listening to. So let's talk about point number 3. Point number 3 is going to be about the lyrics of that music, right? Obviously, what is that music saying? What are those words like? I think this is one of those things that we really have to spend the most time in. What is that music conveying? What is the message there? And so because that is a place where I think we really need to live in, I want you to ask 3 questions when you're listening to any piece of music. The first question is this: does it pass the Philippians 4:8 test? Philippians 4:8 says these beautiful words: finally, brothers, whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's right, whatever's pure, whatever's lovely, whatever is admirable. Sounds like a song as it is. If anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. And I would say, listen to these kind of things, because the truth is that whatever we listen to, whatever we watch, whatever we read, these things have a way of finding their way really into affecting our behavior, our minds, and our hearts, right? So this is why this is a very much an important area that we give weight to Philippians 4:8 type of questions, meaning, is what I'm listening to true? Is what I'm listening to noble, honorable? Is what I'm listening to, is it right? Are these lyrics pure? Are these lyrics lovely? Are these lyrics admirable? Are these lyrics excellent or worthy of praise? This is the summation of that song, right? Is it praiseworthy? Is it just something that is excellent? If it passes that Philippians 4:8 test, then we can feel pretty confident that we can listen to it, right? And the second thing that I would say is that, as an example, I want you to think about a song like It's a Wonderful World. Louis Armstrong was pretty famous in singing that one. And he talks about, I say to myself, it's a wonderful world. And he keeps going over that over and over again. There's a version on YouTube that I love listening to with children singing the song. And I think to myself, yeah, Louis, what a wonderful world. It calls my mind back to, as I stare in God's creation, the fact that we are living in this wonderful world that He has made, and there is so much to be grateful for. Listen to what I just said. This song actually is calling my mind up heavenward to our Creator. It is not considered a gospel song. It's more of a secular song, but look at what it is doing to my soul. That is something that we're going to come to in the third question that you need to ask yourself. But let us go now to number 2. Does this song glorify sin or encourage others to sin? Does it glorify, in other words, a sinful lifestyle? Listen, I'm sure you're probably familiar with so many songs out there that are violent in their lyrics and have high sexual content in their lyrics, and they're just filled with all of that. And the question that we need to ask ourselves is, if this song is glorifying something that God says is sin, is this something I need to be listening to? If this song is filled with coarse language, is this something I need to be listening to? Because as I mentioned earlier, the challenge is that whatever it is that we're listening to, reading or watching, eventually will affect us. We may think, oh no, I'm just kind of listening to that. It will eventually affect us, and it will affect our spiritual life. Listen, years ago, I had the privilege of being at a lifestyle change learning center. And one of the persons that was there, she said to me, look, we were having a discussion around similar lines. And she said, I remember watching the show Dancing with the Stars. I'm sure many of you, whether you're in the United States or whether you're in someplace else in the world, are familiar with that song, that particular show, I'm sorry. Now, obviously with that show, there's a lot of songs that are there because people are dancing to the songs. But I remember her saying, listen, I was watching that show, and this is obviously a show, but I want you to take this to look at how lyrics can affect us, and in general, the impact that this kind of stuff can make. And she said, I was watching it so frequently. She just enjoyed the show. Didn't think anything of it, till one day her husband said to her, you're dressing a little bit more provocatively. And she's more of a conservative Christian. She's very modest in her appearance and in her dress. And she said, "You think?" It's like, "Yeah." And she started to evaluate herself and her life, and it's like, oh my gosh, yes. Then she started to think to herself, where did this begin? How did I start to go down this pathway? And then she was able to trace it back to the story. No trying to disrespect anyone who's seeking to do that show, the producers and all of that. But from a Christian point of view, or worldview, we gotta look at things from our worldview. This particular production, Dancing with the Stars, was affecting her. And without her even knowing, unconsciously, her behavior was changing. This is the power of music. This is the power of what we listen to, what we watch, and what we see and hear. All right, point number 3. Will it influence you or others to sin? So this really is kind of a point that I was making there. Does it glorify sin is one point. Glorifying sin is obviously like, yes, having sex out of marriage is really great, or dancing provocatively is really great. That's a glorification of things that God says, no, those are sins and that's not great. But number 3 is very specific to us and to the people around us. Is this, like what happened to Donna, causing me to change who I am as a Christian? If I don't see it, maybe I need to ask others around me, or maybe others around me will make a comment. And if they do, we need to be open to what they're saying to us, because there can be an impact. We may find ourselves cussing a little bit more if there's a lot of swear words that are being used and things of that nature. And the second thing too, second part of that question is about others. Is what we're listening to causing others to sin? Many of us, when we find songs or we find something that we like, we'll share it with others. It's just a natural human thing. And as a result of that, we have to be careful of, what are we sharing? Are we sharing something that's going to cause them to glorify God and honor God more with their lives? Or is this going to be something that's going to cause them to kind of pull back more into a life of sin? So what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section what you think. I know this tends to be a controversial subject, but let me know what you particularly think about, should Christians listen to secular music, in the comment box. With that, I just want to say, listen, at the end of the day, music or anything that we do is really about one thing. Is what we're doing, what we're listening to, honoring and glorifying God? And at the end of the day, obviously gospel and that kind of music, that fits that description, right? But at the end of the day, is what we're listening to something that points back to God, or is lovely, or is beautiful, and really meets the Philippians 4 test? So I really want you to think about that the next time you listen to some music. With that, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Check out some other videos on the channel, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you for joining me.